already assumed for the suffering millions in Assam. So I don't want to go into the details. I should not eat upon his very valuable time. So may I request you, sir, to kindly enlighten us with your reconsidered opinion regarding what is going on in Assam and what is your perception. You would kindly like to share with us.
Friends, would you prefer that I speak in English or Hindi? Because Bangla I can't speak. जो भी आप लोगों को ज़्यादा सहूलियत.
As you like, no problem. It is up to you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll speak in English then. So it's my privilege and pleasure to be among all of you today. Firstly, I think that the crisis that has been imposed on the Bengali-speaking people and other minorities in Assam has no parallel anywhere in India, and I have looked around and I don't know of any similar process anywhere in the world where millions of people are being forced to prove their citizenship on the basis of records that are hard to ascertain. I saw the film, we all know the history. We often talk about the partition of Punjab and Bengal. We don't remember that Assam was also partitioned in 1947, and that this used to be one country and people used to move here and there, and the hard-working Bengali people had come in because Assam offered land, virgin land of forests and the river islands, and they worked, they made their paddy fields, they built and they contributed. Three or four things that I just wanted to say here. I'm just back. In fact, I have done a series of visits to Assam. The National Human Rights Commission had invited me to be their special monitor on minority issues. So one of the things I said I wanted to do was to go and look at the detention centers in Assam, because no non-official has been allowed to enter the detention centers all of these years. So with great difficulty, the permission was granted, and I went early this year to look at the detention centers, and I found the places as close to hell as possible, because you have, in violation of constitutional norms and international law, three or four things that I found. One was that international law says do not locate detention centers in jails, and all of these were jails within jails. And it is even worse than a jail, because in jail at least you're allowed the common area, but here they are confined into a very small space. So they are actually being governed under the prison manual, except that they don't even have the facilities that people under the prison manual have, which means that under the prison manual you would be allowed, say, to work and to earn, but here no work is possible. No parole is granted under any circumstances. Meeting relatives is really very difficult. And secondly, international law says families should not be separated, but what we found that husband would be in one, the wife would be in a different detention center, children may be outside, no contact between each other, no forms of communication, and in fact communication was permitted only when some kind-hearted jail official would allow them to use the mobile once in a while, but that was the only contact that people had. There was no legal aid provided, and our sense of justice is that anybody even guilty of the worst crime of terror is entitled to state-supported legal aid. And these people said that we didn't get a notice, it was an ex parte order, we have documents, but they had no way of putting forward their case. And most gravely of all, there was no, this was indefinite detention. And that means that there is no extradition treaty with Bengal, with Bangladesh. Nobody is even negotiating an extradition treaty with Bangladesh. So how are you going to resolve the problem? What is going to happen to the people? No, there's no statement, and so in effect, the persons are being kept indefinitely. 9 years, 10 years now have passed. And of course, the worst of all was the site of the women's detention center, where it was almost just a matam hota hai. Once, within about 5 or 10 minutes, they made out that I was somebody who was sympathetic. So all the women, there were about 170, 180 women, all fell on my feet and were saying, just get us out from here anyhow, please get us out. They were desperate, they didn't understand what is happening to them, why they were here. It was a very heart-rending situation. Many of them have got into severe depression, mental illness, and so on. And they're worried about their children, the children outside. So this was, so based on this, I wrote a very detailed report for the National Human Rights Commission, saying that this is contrary to any sense of humanitarian sort of governance, but it's also contrary to both the Constitution and international law. And technically one needs to understand that even if it is argued that people are foreigners, if you are a foreigner, you still enjoy certain fundamental rights. So fundamental right to life and liberty and fundamental right to equality applies regardless of whether you are citizen or not citizen. And so there is no reason for people to be, their life and liberty to be taken away in this way. And international law also says that maximum you should keep a person, even if you have to keep a person in detention, you never separate families and don't keep them in jails. And maximum somebody should be detained is 90 days, and in very exceptional cases for another 90 days, means 6 months. And here there's no end to what was happening. So I wrote this report and I said that we need to get answers from the state and the central government. I also met the state government officials. In fact, my batchmate, I was in the IES, my batchmate was the chief secretary, and we had discussions. I then put out my report, but the NHRC refused to act on the report, and few months passed. I kept reminding, and they found the report too I think difficult for them for whatever reason. And so when the NRC first cut-off date was there, so I was saying that now we have no more time to waste. So I gave a last warning to NHRC, and then I sent in my resignation from my position as NHRC monitor, and I said that now I have the freedom to place this in the public domain. Since you're not acting on it, so I'll put it in the public domain. So I put out the report in the public domain, and it's had a huge amount of impact. Internationally, it has had a lot of impact. Sadly, in India, we've not yet had the sense of outrage that we should. And so I've also then various Bengali friends from Assam suggested to me that we need to take this forward, and because you have seen the detention centers, why don't you file a petition in the Supreme Court? So I have filed a petition which is before the Supreme Court at this point of time against the illegality of the detention centers. The question of detention centers is separated from the question of the NRC, the larger question of the NRC, because my point for the detention centers is that even if the NRC process was completely just, once somebody is declared a foreigner, the state has to tell us what they're going to do, and what they have to do with that person has to be following the constitution and international law and humanitarian principles. And that is not being done. So that was the first thing that I wanted to say. Second was that in my many visits, I have started something called the Karwan-e-Mohabbat with some other colleagues. And we're going wherever there has been hate violence and lynching in different parts of the country. But we felt that we needed, and we needed also to respond to the NRC. So we made one special visit to Assam to families which had committed, where people have committed suicide because of the NRC process. And that was very heartrending as well. I remember this one family we'd gone to where the father, small farmer, he suddenly got a notice from the police as a reference case, went to the foreigners tribunal. From there they said, we've already passed ex parte orders against you, you're a foreigner. They picked him up directly from the detention center, from the tribunal, and put him into the detention center. His wife and children sold whatever property they had, and employed lawyers, spent a lot of money, and appealed in the High Court. When the order was to be made, the elder son had gone, and he came back and told his mother that our appeal has been rejected, and the only option is the Supreme Court, and we have no money now to go to the Supreme Court. The mother went in and hung herself from the roof. There are at least 28 recorded suicides related to this citizenship question. Thirdly, just about less than a month ago, 5 Bengali Hindu men have been shot, and so again we took a karma team, again went back to Assam because people said that they wanted some solace. So I went to Tinsukia and visited I visited the families, and it was again terrifying to see how in this climate of hate they knew nothing. Somebody just walked in, a group of men in with weapons and army looking uniform, and they pulled out 3 men from one house. There were 3 men at the tea shop, and they lined up the 6 men and they just shot them. And one of them, luckily in the dark, he fell, so his life was saved. But the other 5 have died, and this is again the latest set of people to be sacrificed in this long battle that we seem to have mounted against our own people. Thirdly, I wanted to say was that you're all familiar with the problems with the NRC process, but what has happened is actually it's not just the NRC process. We have 3 different directions. It's like you're standing और missiles आपके किस तरफ से कब आएगा? Because there's the NRC process, there's the de-voter by the Election Commission, and then there's the reference cases by the border police. And most of this is discretion at a very low level of the bureaucracy or the police. Somebody just has a doubt and refers the case. Once the case is referred, it goes to the Foreigners Tribunal. The Foreigners Tribunal now has, the BJP government has increased the numbers from I think 36 to 100. And many of them are now run, the presiding officers are not even retired judges, they are lawyers and party workers actually. Yeah. And they have targets, the police has targets, and so it's making life more and more difficult and uncertain. Um, in these circumstances, what does one do? Where does one go? In fact, I was writing a piece this morning, a column that okay, you extended the date by 6 months for filing, but the most important thing is that you have to tell the people of Assam what you're going to do if somebody is finally declared a foreigner. Are you going to put them, you have no, you're not even negotiating an extradition treaty with Assam, with Bangladesh. There's no question of people being pushed back to Bangladesh in millions, whether it's 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is at the end. There is no question of, and detention centers at present have 1,000 people. If say it is 2 million or 3 million people, are we going to create concentration camps? So in the end, you're going to declare people foreigners, and what is going to happen? What is their fate? And the fate is likely to be that they will continue to live in India but without rights. And we have the background of the Nelly violence and so on. This fear of living without rights and without security as non-citizens, unwelcome in this country, but not welcome in any other country. So what does one do in these circumstances? And I see that we are hurtling towards a Rohingya-like situation in Assam, and something very similar will ultimately happen, is where, like the Rohingyas don't belong to, they belong to Myanmar, but Myanmar doesn't accept them and no other country accepts them. That should not be, we should not allow the situation to go to that point. And for that it is important that we all stand together. The only sort of observation I have about this gathering is that there are many communities which are affected by this entire process. There are Bengali Hindus, but there are Bengali Muslims in almost equal numbers, I find. Data says there are Nepalis, there are Adivasis, and there are Hindi-speaking migrants. I feel that this battle should be fought in a spirit of solidarity, of all people standing together. If we are within this battle also going to break up into our small ethnic groups, identity groups based on religion and language, then you are actually doing exactly what you are fighting against. And I think that for me is the way, and that I am deeply disappointed in Assamese left liberal civil society that there are very few people willing to stand with the people who are on the other side of this question of citizenship. And it's important for us in Assam, but also in the rest of India, to stand with the people affected, but it's even more important that the people affected have to stand together as they fight this battle. And it's not something to despair of, but it's a strange irony when you look actually at Assam and you look at Kashmir. There's a peculiar irony, because the people of Kashmir are saying we are not Indian citizens, and we are saying you are Indian citizens. The people in Assam are saying we are Indian citizens, we are saying you're not Indian citizens. So it's a terrible situation in both these two important parts of our country. And Assam is, I was born in undivided Assam in Shillong actually. I spent some of my childhood there, and it's a beautiful part of the country. They're wonderful people, it's got beautiful culture, but it has got so torn apart by division and hate. And we need to find a way of standing together and saying Our culture is Assamese as well, it's Bengali as well, it's Bodo as well, it's Nepali as well, it's Adivasi as well, and we all can stand together in this state of ours. Thank you, and best wishes in your struggle.
Very peculiar situation in which we are in, and when you have been speaking of the so-called detention centers, jail within a jail, you have been awfully right there, and this cannot but remind us of the infamous Auschwitz during the regime of Hitler, when 6 million, many as 6 million Jews were butchered by the Nazis. And because they had the only one argument, we are the Aryans and we have to protect the so-called purity of Aryan blood. Anyway, some such thing is there. Anyway, hatred, I agree with you, definitely, all of us agree here. The hatred cannot be answered to hatred. But then what do you do when you are pushed to the worst of your situation? Anyway, thank you once again on behalf of the of Mr. Chandan Chatterjee, not personally, as well as on behalf of his organization, for sparing some of your valuable moments with us. And we hope we would be interacting soon enough with you, because it will be for our benefit. Anyway, thanks.